He dropped his wallet in a quiet diner. A 5-year-old girl picked up a photo and whispered, "That's my mommy." One glance shattered a billionaire's perfect life. He came for lunch. He found a daughter, a past he abandoned, and one chance to prove he would never disappear again forever. The bell above the door rang, once sharp, clean, ordinary. Blaze Harrington stepped into the Bluebell diner without slowing down. His phone was pressed to his ear, his voice low but commanding, cutting through the warmth of the room, like cold air slipping under a door. "No, Elliot, that's not acceptable. I need confirmed numbers, not estimates." The diner smelled of coffee butter and something sweet baking in the back. Lunch chatter filled the space forks, tapping plates, laughter, small lives unfolding in real time. Blaze didn't notice any of it. He crossed the floor in long, decisive strides and slid into the corner booth by the window coat, still on posture, rigid. Outside, traffic crawled. Inside, time moved slower. Across the room, Mara Wynne balanced a tray on one shoulder. Her ponytail was slightly loose, a few strands clinging to her cheek. She moved with practiced efficiency, order, smile, clear repeat. She didn't look at Blaze. To her, he was just another man in a suit, with problems that didn't belong to her world. Near the back, tucked safely beside a small staff table, sat Lenny Wynne. 5 years old, blonde hair tucked behind her ears, sneakers dangling above the floor as she sat cross-legged on a chair too big for her. In front of her was a coloring pad and a small box of crayons. She hummed quietly, tongue peeking out, as she carefully colored in the wings of a butterfly. Blue, purple, yellow. Her world was small, gentle, and protected. Blaze raised 2 fingers at a passing waitress without looking up. 1 minute. The waitress nodded. Mara passed by with her tray, eyes tired but steady, unaware that a man had just walked into the room carrying a past that was about to collide with her present. And Lenny kept coloring, unaware that one dropped object would soon change everything. "Black coffee, chicken sandwich, please." Blaze finally ended the call and spoke as if time itself were waiting on him. The waitress wrote it down and disappeared. Blaze exhaled, rubbing his temples, eyes fixed on the city outside the window. Meetings, investors, pressure, always pressure. When the food arrived, he ate mechanically, bite, chew, swallow, without tasting anything. His phone buzzed again. He ignored it this time. Barely. He reached into the inner pocket of his blazer for his wallet. It was old. Too old for a man like him. The leather was worn smooth, the stitching loose along one side. He had meant to replace it years ago. Somehow he never did. As he opened it, the seam finally gave way. The wallet slipped from his fingers. Time slowed. It hit the floor with a dull sound, and everything spilled: cards, sliding receipts, fluttering a folded photograph, gliding a little farther than the rest. Blaze cursed under his breath and crouched down, already reaching for the photo. But he wasn't fast enough. A small hand picked it up first. "Excuse me," a soft voice said. Blaze looked up. A little girl stood in front of him, holding the photograph with both hands as if it were important. She had bright blue eyes and a careful, polite expression, the kind children wear when they know they're speaking to an adult. She studied the picture for a moment, then smiled. "That's my mommy." The words landed gently and shattered everything. Blaze froze. One knee on the floor, a credit card still in his hand. "What?" he whispered. The girl turned the photo toward him and pointed. "See, that's her. She looks younger here." Blaze took the photo slowly. His fingers trembled. It was Mara. Younger, yes, but unmistakably her. The only photo he had never thrown away. His chest tightened. Breath caught somewhere it shouldn't. "Your mom." His voice came out rough. "She's here." The girl nodded happily. "Uh-huh. She works here." And then she pointed. Blaze followed the direction of the child's finger. Across the diner, Mara Wynne was placing plates on a table, smiling politely at an elderly couple. She wiped her hands on her apron and turned and stopped. Her eyes met his. For a fraction of a second, the diner vanished. No sound, no movement, just recognition crashing into memory. The tray in Mara's hands tilted slightly. She steadied it, but the color drained from her face. Her lips parted as if to speak, but no words came. It was him. After all these years. Blaze stood frozen, the photo still in his hand, heart pounding so hard it hurt. He took a step forward without meaning to. The little girl tugged gently at Mara's apron. "Mommy," she said cheerfully, unaware of the storm she had just summoned. "He has your picture." Mara blinked. Once. Twice. She looked down at her daughter and forced a breath into her lungs. Her voice, when it came, was calm but tightly controlled. "Sweetheart," she said softly, kneeling to eye level. "Can you go sit with Rosa for a minute?" The girl hesitated, then nodded. "Okay." She walked away safe and guided crayons tucked under her arm. Mara stood. She faced Blaze fully now. Her eyes were no longer shocked. They were cold, guarded, strong. "You shouldn't be here," she said. Blaze opened his mouth. Nothing came out. "I didn't know," he finally managed. Mara crossed her arms. That's never been an excuse. The silence between them stretched heavy with years unsaid. Blaze swallowed. Mara. Her phone buzzed on the counter behind her. Orders waiting, life continuing. She looked at him once more. "Finish your lunch," she said quietly. "Then leave." And she turned away, walking back into her life, leaving him standing there with a photograph, a truth, and a 5-year-old girl who had unknowingly opened a door that could never be closed again. Mara turned her back on Blaze and walked toward the counter, but every step felt heavier than the last. Behind her, the diner continued as if nothing had happened. Coffee poured, plates clinked. Someone laughed too loudly at a joke that didn't matter. Life indifferent and cruelly normal. Blaze remained standing where he was, the photograph burning in his hand. He folded it carefully and slid it back into the wallet, as if returning it could somehow return the moment to where it belonged. It didn't. His phone vibrated again. Elliot. Blaze stared at the screen, jaw clenched. He didn't want to answer. Not now. Not here. For the first time in years, the noise on the other end of the line felt smaller than the silence in front of him. Mara placed an order ticket on the rail with unnecessary force. "Answer it," she said without turning around. Her voice was calm, but it carried old resentment carefully buried and suddenly awake. "You always do." Blaze flinched. He stepped closer. "Mara, please, just—" The phone rang again, louder this time, insistent. Blaze exhaled and answered. "Yes," he said quietly. "I know the meeting moved up." Mara faced him now, arms crossed, eyes unreadable. "No, I can't come back yet." Blaze swallowed. Something came up. A pause. "Yes, it's important." Another pause. He closed his eyes. "Fine. I'll be there." The call ended. The silence afterward was sharper than the ring. Blaze slipped the phone into his pocket and looked at Mara, guilt written openly across his face. "I didn't know about her," he said. "If I had..." Mara shook her head once. Just once. "If you had known, you still would have left," she said. "You always chose the loudest thing in the room." She gestured subtly toward the door. "Finish what you came for," she continued. "Then go." Blaze placed a few bills on the table, far more than necessary. Money was the only language he'd ever known how to offer. It meant nothing here. As he walked toward the exit, the bell rang again. This time it sounded like an ending. Mara didn't let herself break on the floor. She carried plates to the sink, wiped the counter, smiled at a customer who thanked her for the refill. She finished the motions before they finished her. Only when she reached the small storage room in the back did she stop. The door closed softly behind her. Mara leaned her forehead against the cool metal shelf and inhaled slow, controlled, practiced. This wasn't her first storm. It was just the one she had feared the most. She pressed her hand to her chest and counted. 1, 2, 3. Her hands trembled anyway. Mommy Mara opened her eyes. Lenny stood in the doorway holding Rosa's hand. Her small face was tilted in concern, blue eyes searching. Mara straightened immediately. "I'm okay, sweetheart," she said, kneeling down. She wiped her face quickly and smiled the kind of smile built to reassure children. "Just a little tired." Lenny stepped closer and wrapped her arms around Mara's neck. "You look sad." Mara closed her eyes for a second and hugged her back, careful not to squeeze too tight. "I'm not sad," she said gently. "Just surprised." "Was that man your friend?" Lenny asked. Mara brushed a strand of hair from her daughter's face. "He was someone I knew a long time ago." "Why did he have your picture?" Mara hesitated. Not because she didn't have an answer, but because the truth was too heavy for 5-year-old hands. Sometimes, she said softly, people keep pictures of things they didn't know how to take care of. Lenny considered this serious and thoughtful. "Did he forget you?" Mara swallowed. "He didn't forget," she said. "He just wasn't ready." Lenny nodded, as if that made sense. She rested her head on Mara's shoulder. "I like my drawings better than pictures," she said quietly. Mara smiled, kissing the top of her head. "So do I." Outside the storage room, the diner hummed on, but inside, Mara held her daughter tightly, because whatever Blaze Harrington chose to do next, she would not let her child feel unprotected. Not ever. Blaze didn't drive away right after leaving the diner. He sat in his car across the street, hands resting uselessly on the steering wheel, eyes fixed on the glowing windows of the Bluebell Diner. Inside, he could see movement shadows crossing a child's small shape near the back. Her. 5 years old. His chest tightened until it hurt to breathe. He took the wallet from his pocket and opened it slowly. The photo stared back at him, Mara's younger face smiling at a future that never arrived. He had carried it through promotions, boardrooms, private flights. He had told himself it meant nothing. He had lied. His phone buzzed again. Elliot. The world demanding him back. Blaze silenced it. For the first time in years, he let the noise wait. He leaned his head against the seat and closed his eyes. A child coloring butterflies. A voice saying, "That's my mommy." Mara's eyes hurt, controlled, unyielding. "I missed everything," he whispered. "Not just birthdays or first steps, but the quiet days. The ordinary moments that built a life." Blaze straightened. He couldn't undo the past. No apology would be large enough. No check could cover what he had taken by absence. But he could choose what happened next. He started the car not to leave the city, but to circle the block once more, as if staying nearby mattered. Across the street, the diner door opened briefly. Lenny appeared with Rosa bundled in her jacket, laughing at something small and wonderful. Blaze watched from a distance. He didn't wave. He didn't approach. He respected the boundary. But something inside him settled, not relief, not peace, just resolve. Tomorrow he would come back. Not with excuses, not with urgency, but with time. Blaze returned the next day at the same hour. But this time he wasn't on the phone. No Bluetooth, no briefcase, no coat draped like a shield. Just a simple jacket and hands that didn't know where to rest. The bell rang again, softer now, as if the diner recognized him. Mara noticed immediately. Her body reacted before her mind, shoulders tightening, breath hitching for half a second before she smoothed it away. She kept wiping the counter, slow and deliberate, pretending he was just another customer. Blaze took the same corner booth and waited. Minutes passed. 10, 15. He didn't order. He didn't rush. He simply watched the rhythm of the diner, the way Mara moved, the way she checked the register twice, the way she glanced instinctively toward the back corner every few minutes, toward Lenny. Lenny sat beside Rosa again, coloring quietly. Today it was a house with a sun too big for the page. She laughed softly when one crayon snapped in half. Blaze felt it, something tightening in his chest. Mara finally approached his table, pen in hand. "What do you want?" she asked, not unkindly, but without warmth. Blaze met her eyes. "To sit," he said. "If that's okay." She frowned slightly. "You have to order." He nodded. "Coffee, that's all." She wrote it down, paused, then added, "You don't get to disrupt her routine." "I won't," he said immediately. "I promise." Mara studied his face, searching for hurry, for performance. She found none. The coffee arrived. Blaze wrapped his hands around the mug, letting the heat ground him. He didn't look at Lenny. Not yet. He understood distance now. Mara walked away, uneasy. Across the room, Lenny looked up and noticed him. Their eyes met. Blaze smiled, not wide, not claiming, just a small, careful curve of the mouth. Lenny smiled back. Just once. Lenny waited. She didn't run over. She didn't wave. She had been taught better than that. She watched Blaze from her chair, chin resting in her hands, curiosity buzzing quietly behind her eyes. After a while, she leaned toward Rosa and whispered something. Rosa nodded and glanced at Mara. Mara noticed the exchange instantly. Her gaze sharpened, but when Rosa gestured calmly and pointed toward Blaze's table, Mara hesitated, then gave a small, controlled nod. Lenny stood and walked over, careful steps, coloring pad hugged to her chest, like something precious. She stopped a few feet away. "Hi," she said. Blaze straightened slightly. "Hi." She lifted the pad. "Can I show you my drawing?" Blaze didn't answer right away. He looked past her to Mara. Mara froze. He waited. Her jaw tightened. Then she nodded once. A test. A boundary. "Okay," Blaze said gently. Lenny climbed onto the chair across from him and opened the pad. Butterflies, houses, stick figures, a park with swings. Blaze leaned forward, listening as if each drawing were a story worth memorizing. "That one's my mommy," Lenny said, pointing proudly. "She looks happy," Blaze replied. "She is," Lenny said simply. "She just gets tired." Something in his chest gave way. "You draw very well," he said. "You pay attention to details." Lenny beamed. Mara watched from across the diner, heart tight. She didn't hear the words, but she saw the tone, respectful calm contained. After a few minutes, Mara walked over. "Lenny," she said softly. "Time to go back." Lenny nodded immediately. No protest. She slid off the chair and looked at Blaze. "Bye. Bye," he said. She walked away, safe routine intact. Mara lingered for a moment. "Don't make her expect you," she said quietly. Blaze met her eyes. "Then tell me how not to." Mara had no answer for that. She turned away, and Blaze stayed still, quiet, patient, learning that sometimes the most powerful thing a man can do is not move at all. Blaze came back the next day, and the next. Always at the same time. Always the same table. Always calm. He never arrived with gifts, never with promises. Just presence. Lenny noticed. She began to look for him when the bell rang. Not running, not clinging, just checking, as if he were becoming part of the room. Mara noticed that too. On the fourth day, she approached his table after the lunch rush slowed. "You need to understand something," she said, arms crossed. Blaze nodded. "I'm listening." "She's 5, Mara continued. "She doesn't need big gestures. She needs consistency, and if you disappear, I won't," he said. Mara's eyes hardened. "You already did." Silence stretched between them. Blaze didn't defend himself. He didn't argue. He only said, "Tell me what you need." Mara hesitated. No one had asked her that in years. No surprises, she said finally. No promises you can't keep. No gifts without permission. And you don't take her anywhere without me knowing. Agreed, Blaze said immediately. And you don't talk to her about things she's not ready to understand, he swallowed. Agreed. Mara searched his face again, looking for cracks. She found resolve instead. Across the diner, Lenny watched them, unaware of the weight of what was being decided. She colored another butterfly, this one purple. Mara sighed. This doesn't mean I trust you, she said. I know, Blaze replied. And it doesn't mean you're forgiven. I know. Mara turned to leave, then paused. But she added quietly, You can sit here. For now. Blaze exhaled for the first time all day. Thank you. Mara walked away, heart pounding, not with certainty but with something else. Possibility. And in the corner, Lenny looked up and smiled to herself, not knowing why the room felt warmer, only that it did. On the 5th day, Blaze came with something new, not in his hands. He placed a small paper bag carefully on the empty seat beside him and left it there untouched, as if it didn't belong to him yet. Mara noticed immediately. Her eyes flicked to the bag, then back to Blaze. Suspicion rose, quiet, controlled. She approached his table slowly. What's that? She asked. Blaze didn't reach for it. A book, he said, for Lenny. If and only if you're okay with it. Mara folded her arms. You don't need to bring her anything. I know, he replied. That's why I didn't give it to her. That stopped her. Across the room, Lenny colored at her table with Rosa. She glanced over, curious, but stayed where she was supposed to be. Blaze waited. Mara studied him, his posture, his voice, the way he didn't rush to explain or persuade. She looked at the bag again. What kind of book? She asked. Animals, Blaze said. Short stories, bedtime length. Mara exhaled slowly. She hated how reasonable that sounded. One book, she said at last. Not a habit. Blaze nodded. Understood. Mara motioned to Rosa, then to Lenny. Lenny approached, small steps, careful, eyes wide. This is for you, Mara said, keeping her voice neutral. Lenny looked up at Blaze. Really, if your mom says it's okay, he answered. Mara nodded once. Lenny opened the bag and pulled out the book. Her face lit up, not loud, not wild, just pure delight. It has a fox, she whispered, flipping pages. Blaze smiled, heart aching in a way he didn't recognize. Say thank you, Mara prompted gently. Thank you, Lenny said, hugging the book to her chest. Blaze didn't touch her. He didn't lean in. He only said, You're welcome. When Lenny returned to her table, Mara lingered. This doesn't change anything, she said quietly. I know, Blaze replied. But as Mara walked away, she felt something unsettling. Not trust, but the first crack in certainty. The next afternoon was quieter. Rain tapped gently against the diner windows, softening the light. Lenny sat with her coloring pad, crayons spread neatly like treasures. Blaze watched from his booth, careful not to stare. After a while, Lenny approached with Rosa again. This time she didn't ask to sit. She just held up a drawing. Can I show him? She asked her mother. Mara hesitated, then nodded. 2 minutes. Lenny placed the drawing on Blaze's table. It was different from the others. A bicycle, purple, with a basket and long ribbons streaming from the handles. A small girl rode it beneath a wide, smiling sun. Blaze stared. That's beautiful, he said quietly. It's my dream bike, Lenny explained. I draw it a lot. Do you have one? Blaze asked gently. Lenny shook her head. Not yet. Mommy says we're saving. No sadness. No complaint. Just truth. Mara approached, eyes narrowing when she saw the drawing. Lenny, she said softly, time's up. Lenny nodded and gathered her crayons. Before leaving, she looked at Blaze. Someday I'll write it really fast. I hope you do, he said. She smiled and walked away. Mara stayed. She didn't ask you for anything, she said defensively. I know, Blaze replied. She didn't have to. Mara crossed her arms. Don't turn this into guilt. I'm not, he said. I'm turning it into responsibility. That night, Blaze sat in his car again. The image of the purple bike burned into his mind. Not because he could buy it, but because he hadn't been there to teach her how. A week passed. Blaze became part of the background, present, quiet, predictable. Lenny now greeted him with a small wave. Nothing more. One afternoon, as Lenny sat at his table drawing with Rosa nearby, she asked suddenly without warning, "Do you have a family?" The question landed softly and detonated. Blaze paused. I didn't think I did. Lenny tilted her head. I just have Mommy. Blaze nodded. She's very brave. Lenny smiled. She says brave people get tired too. Something twisted in his chest. Do you know your dad? Blaze asked carefully. Lenny shook her head. No, Mommy says he went away before I was born. Blaze felt the air leave his lungs. Before he could speak, Mara appeared calm but alert. Lenny, she said gently, snack time. Lenny obeyed, safe and unafraid. Mara turned to Blaze, voice low. We agreed. I didn't push, he said. She asked. That doesn't mean you answer, Mara replied. She deserves honesty, he said. She deserves peace, Mara corrected. At 5. They stood there, tension thick but controlled. Blaze finally nodded. You're right. Mara watched him closely, expecting resistance. There was none. That night, Blaze didn't sleep, because now he knew something had shifted. The past was no longer distant. It was sitting across from him with crayons and a purple dream. The diner was in that rare in-between hour late afternoon when the lunch rush had faded, but dinner hadn't begun. The room felt softer, fewer voices, more space between sounds. Blaze sat in his booth with his coffee untouched, watching the rain bead and slide down the glass. He wasn't thinking about investors or market forecasts. He was thinking about a 5-year-old girl's calm voice. Mommy says he went away before I was born. The words had followed him like a shadow for days. Mara moved through the diner with quiet precision, wiping tables, refilling napkins, stacking clean mugs. She avoided his booth like it was a magnet she didn't trust. But she also watched Lenny like she always did, instinctively, lovingly, responsibly, making sure Rosa was nearby, making sure her daughter stayed in her safe corner, making sure no adult conversation spilled into a child's world. Lenny was at the back table again, drawing in a fresh pad Blaze had asked permission to buy. Rosa sat beside her, knitting with calm hands, a warm presence that made everything feel steadier. Blaze stood. He didn't do it dramatically. No sudden movement. No grand announcement. He simply rose from his seat and walked toward the counter, stopping at a respectful distance from Mara. Mara, he said quietly. She didn't look up right away. If you're paying, you can pay at the register. She answered, voice neutral. I'm not here about the bill. Mara's fingers paused on the cloth. Her shoulders lifted slightly like armor, then settled. Blaze kept his tone gentle. Can we talk for 2 minutes, somewhere private? Not around customers. Mara's eyes flicked toward Lenny first. Always first. Lenny was safe with Rosa, calm, focused on her drawing. Mara exhaled. 2 minutes, she said, and pointed toward the hallway. Back room. They stepped behind the kitchen doors where the air smelled like soap and warm bread. Mara chose the storage room again, the place where she could control her breathing, control her face, control the past. She leaned against the wall, arms crossed. Say what you came to say. Blaze stood a few feet away, hands open at his sides. No reaching, no claiming, no closing distance that wasn't offered. He swallowed. She's mine, isn't she? The room went still. Mara's eyes shut for a brief second, as if the question physically struck her. When she opened them, her gaze was steady but bright with restrained emotion. It doesn't matter now, she said, voice low. It matters, Blaze replied, not loud, not forceful, just absolute. To me, to her, to the truth. Mara's laugh was short and humorless. You want truth now, after all these years? Blaze didn't argue. Yes, he said. And I'm not asking to rewrite the past. I'm asking to stop living a lie. Mara's jaw tightened. She turned her head slightly, as if looking for an exit inside the room. But there was none. Not from this. You left, she said. 2 words. A whole history. You left, and you didn't look back. Blaze's throat tightened. I know. Mara's voice stayed controlled, never cruel, never explosive. She didn't weaponize the child. She didn't dramatize. She simply spoke like someone who had survived too many quiet nights without anyone to carry half the weight. A month after you disappeared, she continued. I found out I was pregnant. Blaze's face changed like the air emptied out of him. He didn't fall apart. He didn't make it a show. But his eyes did what eyes do when the soul finally catches up. I tried to reach you, Mara said. I did. I called the number I had. It was disconnected. I emailed the address you used back then. No reply. You weren't just busy, Blaze. Your life had already moved on without leaving a doorway for me to knock. Blaze's voice came out rough. I changed everything because I thought that's what success required. Mara shook her head, and I changed everything because I didn't have a choice. She looked down, then back up. My mom helped me at first. She made sure I wasn't alone. She was the one who held my hand when I was scared. She was the one who told me I could do it. Her voice softened for one breath, then steadied again. And then she got sick, Mara said carefully, not describing anything graphic, not turning it into trauma for its own sake. And I lost the only adult I had. Blaze's eyes glistened. He didn't interrupt. So it was just me, Mara continued, and Lenny. And the world doesn't pause for grief. The world doesn't discount rent because you're exhausted. It doesn't care that you're doing your best. Blaze's breath trembled. Mara. She raised her hand. No. You asked for truth. Here it is. She stepped closer, still a respectful distance, but the intensity increased. Yes, Mara said. She's yours. She has your eyes, your stubbornness, your quiet way of watching the room before she steps into it. Blaze's face crumpled slightly, just for a second. Then he forced himself to hold it together. I didn't know, he whispered. Mara's gaze sharpened. You didn't know because you didn't stay. Silence filled the storage room like water rising. Blaze nodded slowly, as if each nod cost him something. I can't undo what I did, he said. But I can stop doing it, starting now. Mara's expression didn't soften. Not yet. Starting now, she repeated, tasting the words like something she didn't trust. Blaze looked toward the door, toward the diner, toward the back corner where a 5-year-old girl colored butterflies like the world was safe. I won't break her world, he said quietly. Not again. Blaze left the storage room first because Mara needed space, and for the first time in his life he understood that space was not rejection. It was protection. He walked back into the diner like a man carrying a truth too heavy for his body. The clinking plates sounded louder now. The coffee machine hissed like static. A child laughed at something near the window, and Blaze flinched, not from the sound, but from the idea of all the laughter he hadn't heard. He didn't go to Lenny. He didn't look at her longer than a heartbeat. He paid at the register, left a normal tip, nothing dramatic, and stepped outside into the rain. The cold hit his face like reality. He sat in his car and didn't start the engine. For a long time, he just stared at his hands on the steering wheel as if he was seeing them for the first time. These hands had signed contracts, shaken other powerful hands, pointed at charts, moved money like it was air. But they had never held his daughter's tiny hand on the first day of kindergarten. Blaze opened his wallet again. The photo of Mara was still there, edges worn from years of being taken out and put back like a private confession. Now it wasn't just Mara in that photo. It was Lenny's future inside it. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees, forehead nearly touching the wheel. His chest tightened, then loosened, then tightened again in waves that felt like punishment. And then his phone rang. Elliot Park. Blaze stared at the screen. In another lifetime yesterday, he would have answered immediately, voice sharp, mind sprinting. But today the ring sounded like what it was, a demand, another rope pulling him away. He answered, but his voice was different. Elliot. Thank God, Elliot said. Where are you? The investor call is in 20 minutes. We need you. Blaze, this is Blaze, cut in calm. I'm not joining. Silence on the line. You're not what? Elliot sounded genuinely stunned. Blaze, the Harrington Bay project, I know, Blaze said. Reassign it. Elliot's voice rose. That's not how this works. Blaze's jaw tightened. It is now. A pause. Elliot tried again, lower, more strategic. You're making an emotional decision. Blaze stared at the diner through the rain-streaked windshield. He could see Mara moving between tables. He could see Rosa in the back corner. He could see Lenny's small head bent over her drawing pad. No, Blaze said quietly. I'm making a responsible one. Elliot exhaled sharply. What happened? Blaze swallowed. I have a daughter. Another silence, this one not angry, just shocked. Elliot's voice softened slightly. Okay. Blaze, but the board will adjust, Blaze said, or they'll find someone else. I built this company. I can restructure my time. You're risking everything, Elliot warned. Blaze's eyes didn't move from the diner. I already did, he said. I just didn't realize it. He ended the call before Elliot could argue again. Then he did something that would have seemed impossible a week ago. He opened his calendar. He started deleting. A trip. Gone. A conference. Gone. A dinner. Gone. He emailed his assistant, all travel postponed. All non-essential meetings delegated, no exceptions. He messaged his legal team, family matters. I need clear, lawful custody/support guidance. I want to do this right. He called his foundation director, create a safe, supervised child space, licensed staff, approved protocols, all legal compliance. This is for community families too. He wasn't buying forgiveness. He wasn't buying a child's love. He was building consistency with the only currency that mattered now, time. Blaze finally started the car, but he didn't drive to the office. He drove home to shower and change into simple clothes that didn't pretend he was untouchable. And as he drove, he rehearsed what he would say to Mara, not to persuade her, but to offer something she had never been offered, a plan. Not a promise made in adrenaline, a plan made in daylight. Because a 5-year-old girl deserved more than a man who felt guilty. She deserved a father who showed up even when no one was watching. Blaze returned 2 days later. Not because he disappeared, because Mara needed time and he respected that. He didn't punish her with absence. He didn't flood her with texts. He simply waited quietly, doing the work behind the scenes that would make presence possible. When he walked into Bluebell Diner again, he wore dark jeans and a soft blue sweater. No suit, no watch that shouted, no briefcase. His phone was in his pocket, silent. Mara saw him the moment the bell rang. Her posture stiffened, but she didn't panic. Rosa was with Lenny. Lenny was coloring, safe, routine intact. Blaze didn't go to his booth. He walked to Mara, slowly stopping at a respectful distance. I'd like 5 minutes, he said. In the back, if you're willing. Mara stared at him as if trying to decide whether this was a new version of the same old story. Business is slow, she said finally, eyes scanning the room. Rosa, keep her busy. Rosa nodded calmly, as steady as a lighthouse. In the back room, Mara crossed her arms again. Talk. Blaze took a breath and reached into his pocket. He pulled out a folded sheet of paper and held it out, but he didn't push it into her hands. He waited for her to choose. Mara took it cautiously and opened it. It was a schedule. Detailed. Simple. Real. Every weekday, 8 a.m., Blaise picks Lenny up from the apartment building entrance with Mara present at handoff. 8:30 a.m. drop-off at kindergarten. 3 p.m. pickup. 3:30 to 5:30 p.m. Homework, library, story time, or park play, public places, safe, age-appropriate. 6 p.m. return to Mara. Always on time. Mara blinked. "What is this commitment?" Blaise said. "Written down so it can't hide behind feelings." Mara's voice tightened. "You can't just decide this. I'm not deciding alone," Blaise replied. "I'm offering. You set the rules." He pulled out a second paper, an information packet. "I spoke to a family attorney," he said carefully. "Not to fight you. To do this legally and responsibly. Support custody boundaries, everything clear. I want zero chaos for her." Mara's throat bobbed. "You did all that. In 2 days." "I didn't sleep," Blaise admitted. "Not because I felt bad, because I finally understood what I broke." Mara's eyes narrowed. "And what about your company, your meetings, your emergencies?" Blaise didn't flinch. "I rearranged them. I delegated. I canceled travel. I told the board they'll adjust." Mara let out a sharp breath. "That's not realistic?" "It is," he said. "I made it realistic." He reached into his pocket again and pulled out a small key on a simple keychain. He held it up, but again didn't push. "This is a supervised children's room at my foundation," he said. "Licensed staff, background checks, proper protocols. It's not for replacing you. It's for emergencies if you're working, and I'm delayed by something truly unavoidable. A safe backup. And it serves other families too." Mara stared at the key like it was something dangerous, not because it could hurt her, but because hope could. "You think you can show up now?" she said, voice trembling slightly, "and make everything better with a calendar and a key?" Blaise's voice softened. "Number." He stepped back half a step, giving her air. "I don't think I can fix it fast," he said. "I think I can fix it slowly, with consistency, with respect, with your permission." Mara's eyes glistened. "What if you get tired?" "I won't," Blaise said. Mara shook her head. "You don't know that." Blaise's gaze held steady. "I do," he said quietly. "Because for the first time in my life, I know what matters more than winning." He nodded toward the door, toward the diner floor, toward the back corner, where Lenny's small laugh floated like something sacred. "It's her," he said, "and it's her peace." Mara looked away, swallowing hard. Her whole life had been built on one rule: don't depend on anyone who can leave. And Blaise was the definition of someone who could leave. But the paper in her hands was heavy. Not with money, with time. Mara's voice came out thin. "If I say yes, it's under my rules." Blaise nodded instantly. "Any rules?" Mara inhaled slowly, then exhaled like she was stepping onto thin ice. "I'm not forgiving you," she said. "I'm not asking you to." Blaise replied. Mara stared at him, hurt still there, fear still there, yet something else flickering beneath it. A door not open, but unlocked. The change didn't happen all at once. It arrived quietly, disguised as routine. Blaise showed up the next morning at exactly 7:55 a.m., standing near the entrance of Mara's apartment building. He didn't honk. He didn't call. He simply waited, hands in his pockets, posture calm. Mara came down with Lenny a few minutes later. Lenny wore her small backpack straps, a little too long hair, still slightly messy from sleep. She stopped when she saw Blaise, eyes widening, not with shock, but recognition. "He came," she whispered to herself. Mara kept her face neutral. "We try it for 1 week," she said firmly. "Then we reassess." Blaise nodded. "Fair." The drive to kindergarten was quiet and careful. Blaise asked simple questions: favorite color, favorite song. Nothing heavy, nothing that crossed a line. When they arrived, he walked Lenny to the gate, stopping where parents were meant to stop. He knelt to her height. "I'll be here at 3, he said. "Right here." Lenny studied his face, serious. "Promise." Blaze didn't answer fast. "I don't promise things I won't do," he said instead. "But yes, I'll be here." Lenny smiled and ran inside. At 3 p.m., Blaze was there. At 3:30, they sat at a library table coloring and reading. At 5:55, he parked in front of Mara's building. Exactly. Mara noticed. So did Lenny. On the third day, as Blaze was walking her back to the car after school, Lenny tripped slightly on the curb. He reached out instinctively, not grabbing, not panicking, just steadying her elbow. "You okay?" he asked. Lenny nodded, then looked up at him. "Daddy." The word slipped out, not loud, not dramatic, not meant to hurt anyone. The world stopped. Blaze froze. Lenny froze too, eyes widening as she realized what she had said. She glanced around, suddenly unsure. I mean, she stammered. Blaze swallowed, heart pounding, and looked away for a split second toward the sidewalk, toward the sky, anywhere but her. Then he crouched. "Lenny," he said gently, voice steady despite everything breaking inside him. "You didn't do anything wrong," she frowned. "Is it bad?" "No," he said immediately. "It's just something we go slow with." "Okay," she nodded, relieved. That evening when he brought her home, he told Mara, exactly as it happened. No editing, no claiming. Mara listened in silence and didn't stop him. Mara didn't react right away. She finished dinner, helped Lenny wash her hands, read her a short bedtime story, tucked her in with the same care she always had. Only when Lenny was asleep did Mara step into the hallway with Blaze. Her arms crossed slowly, deliberately. "She called you that," Mara said. "Yes," Blaze replied. "Once. I didn't encourage it. I redirected gently." Mara searched his face. "You don't get to correct her emotions," she said. "But you don't get to claim her either." "I understand," Blaze said. Silence stretched. Mara inhaled deeply. "We need rules. Clear ones." Blaze nodded. "I'm ready." She counted them off, voice firm, controlled, protective, not cruel. "You don't introduce yourself as her father. Ever. Not to teachers, not to strangers. That's my call. Agreed. You don't make plans with her without checking with me first. Agreed. You don't disappear. If you're late, you tell me before she starts waiting. I will never let her wait alone. And if at any point I believe this is hurting her..." Mara said, eyes sharp, "I stop it." Blaze didn't hesitate. "I accept that." Mara exhaled tension, trembling through her body. "I'm not ready to trust you. I know. I'm still angry. I know. And I may never forgive you." Blaze met her gaze. "I don't need forgiveness to do the right thing." That stopped her. The next weeks unfolded not in big scenes, but in repetition. Blaze arrived every morning, picked Lenny up every afternoon, returned her every evening. No gifts, no surprises, no broken rhythms. Lenny became lighter. She talked more, laughed more, drew bigger suns. Mara watched from a distance, heart torn between fear and something she hadn't allowed herself to feel in years. Relief. The idea of the bicycle stayed with Blaze, not as an impulse, but as something that needed timing. So he waited, 3 full weeks. Then he asked. Saturday morning, he said to Mara over the phone, "I have something I'd like to do with Lenny. Only if you're comfortable, and you're welcome to come." Mara hesitated. Saturdays were precious, rare. But Lenny, overhearing, looked up with hopeful eyes. "Please, Mommy." Mara closed her eyes briefly. "All right," she said. "But we do it together. Helmet, park, and if she's scared, we stop." Saturday morning, Blaze's car was parked out front. The trunk opened. Inside was the bicycle. Purple, small, with training wheels and ribbons, exactly like the drawing. Lenny gasped, hands flying to her mouth. Is that mine? Blaze looked at Mara first. Mara swallowed hard, then nodded. Yes, Blaze said, if you want it. Lenny didn't scream. She didn't jump. She walked forward, slowly touching the handle like it might disappear. At the park, Blaze knelt beside her, adjusting the helmet carefully. I'll hold the seat, he said. You just pedal. She wobbled, stopped, started again. Mara watched from a bench, heart pounding. Lenny fell once onto the grass, nothing serious. Blaze helped her up, calmly brushed off her hands, checked with Mara. You want to try again? He asked. Yes, Lenny said, determined. And then she rode. Not far, not fast, but on her own. I did it, she laughed. Blaze didn't cheer loudly. He just smiled, eyes wet. Mara stood. For the first time, she let herself imagine something dangerous. A future where she wasn't carrying everything alone. The weeks that followed didn't look like miracles. They looked like mornings. Blaze showed up every weekday at the same time. Same place. Same quiet knock on the car door. No rushing, no apologies needed, because nothing was late. Lenny came down the apartment steps with her backpack bouncing against her shoulders, waving before she even reached the sidewalk. Good morning, Blaze said every single day. Good morning, Lenny answered, as if it were the most important ritual in the world. Mara watched from the doorway, at first arms crossed, heart guarded. She memorized every detail, how he waited for Lenny to buckle herself in before checking how he adjusted the mirror so she could see the road, how he never raised his voice. At kindergarten pickup, Blaze was always there early. He stood back with the other parents, never stepping out of line, never claiming a role that wasn't fully granted. When Lenny ran out, he knelt, opened his arms, and waited. Sometimes she ran into them. Sometimes she didn't. Both were okay. Afternoons were quiet and ordinary. Homework at the library. Picture books on the carpet. Snacks chosen carefully, nothing excessive, nothing that broke routine. At the park, Blaze stayed close, but not hovering, watching Lenny climb and slide, always within reach, never intruding. At exactly 6 p.m., Lenny was back at Mara's door. Always. No excuses, no delays. Mara noticed how Lenny slept deeper, how she hummed while brushing her teeth, how she started drawing 3 figures instead of 2, not because anyone asked her to, but because it felt true. One evening, Mara spoke without looking at Blaze as he stood by the door. She seems lighter. Blaze nodded. She's doing great. Mara hesitated. So are you. It wasn't forgiveness, but it was acknowledgement. And for Blaze, it felt like the ground under his feet had finally stopped shifting. One night after Lenny was asleep, Mara sat alone at the kitchen table, staring at a drawing taped to the fridge. 3 figures, holding hands, uneven lines, bright colors, my family. Her chest tightened, not with pain this time, but with something heavier. Choice. When her phone buzzed, she almost ignored it. It was Blaze. She answered. Yes, I won't keep you long, he said. I just wanted to check, would it be okay if I take Lenny to the science fair at her school next Friday? You'd be welcome to come. Mara closed her eyes briefly. The old instinct rose, say no, stay safe, don't depend. But then she remembered Lenny's laugh on the bicycle, the calm of the routine, the way Blaze never crossed a boundary without asking. Yes, she said finally. I'll come too. There was a pause on the line. Thank you, Blaze said quietly. At the fair, Blaze stood beside Mara as Lenny proudly showed her simple project paper planets hanging from string. Blaze didn't interrupt. He didn't explain for her. He just listened as if every word mattered. Later, as they walked home, Lenny skipped between them, holding both their hands without asking. Neither adult pulled away. At the apartment door, Lenny hugged Blaze tightly. See you tomorrow. Yes, he said. Tomorrow. Inside, Mara leaned against the door after Lenny went to bed. You're doing this right, she said finally, voice tired but sincere. That doesn't erase the past. I know, Blaze replied. I'm not trying to. Mara studied him. I'm still afraid. I would be too, he said. Silence settled, no longer sharp, just thoughtful. For the first time in years, Mara didn't feel like she was standing alone at the edge of everything. On Sunday morning, Lenny woke early and padded into the kitchen with her blanket trailing behind her. Mama, she said sleepily, holding up a new drawing. Mara took it and felt her breath catch. 3 figures again. But this time they weren't just holding hands. They were walking forward together, a long path stretching ahead of them. Above it, in careful letters, "We're not lost anymore." Mara knelt and pulled Lenny into her arms. "It's beautiful," she whispered. Later that day, Blaze arrived to take Lenny to the park. She ran ahead, then stopped suddenly. "Wait," she said, serious. She took Mara's hand, then Blaze's. "Come with me," she said. They walked not as a perfect picture, not as a promise of forever, but as something real. At the park, Lenny rode her purple bike in wide circles, laughter ringing through the air. Blaze clapped softly. Mara smiled without realizing it. When the sun dipped low, they sat on a bench together. "I don't know what this becomes," Mara said quietly. Blaze nodded. "Neither do I." But she added, watching Lenny pedal toward them again, "She's safe. She's happy. And you're here." Blaze looked at his daughter, his 5-year-old miracle, then back at Mara. "I'll keep being here," he said. "As long as it takes." Mara didn't answer with words. She reached out and adjusted Lenny's helmet strap, then handed it to Blaze to help. A small gesture, a shared responsibility. That night, Lenny taped her newest drawing to the fridge herself. 3 figures, a path, a sun rising. Not a fairy tale. Not a perfect ending, but a beginning built on patience, protection, and the quiet power of showing up every single day. Did this story leave a lasting impression on you? We'd love to hear your thoughts. Leave a comment, rate it from 1 to 10, and tap the end screen to see another heartwarming story waiting for you. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, then tap the bell icon so you don't miss any new stories. Until our next story.